Hello, watchers out there. Welcome to Medfield TV. Today we're another incident of Medfield people. My guest today is Seymour Levy, who's going to tell us how the heck he got to Medfield from South Africa, and he has a fascinating job. So we're going to talk about both things. So my friend Seymour.
Hi.
And how long have you lived here in Medfield?
I've been here now 13 years in the town, and when I came to this country, I lived in Needham for many years, and Boston was my destination, so that's how I moved further back in time.
And where did you live in South Africa?
I emanate from Cape Town. Now, Cape Town's today is a very, very large city, spread out, and my village that I lived in, the suburb, was called Athlone. Lived there through my teens, just before coming to this country. My parents being, my mother actually was the American in the family, and so there is a ruling and a law that to this day still holds. A parent, I think maybe the mother, can register their children if born outside of the country, and they will retain U.S. citizenship up to 22 years of age. And all these people need to come to this country to retain and keep their American citizenship.
Interesting. How'd your parents get to South Africa? Was your father born there?
My father happened to be born there in the previous century back. It goes back some time now.
You must be 100 years old.
So. But he came here and settled here. He came to study at Harvard, became a dentist.
Oh, I didn't know that. My father was a dentist.
And had a dental lab here in the Boston area. I think a major client of his was the Massachusetts Department of Corrections. And so he, having the lab, he took care of the needs for that institution. And then at a certain point, he must have got a little homesick. 20 years he had spent here. And they decided that my mother and father would go with one child already. They would go to South Africa.
Wow, that's a big switch.
And so that was just before, that was in the mid-30s that they went there. So.
And did he become was he practicing dentistry there too?
No, he happened not to. He went into it. They were going to hope to have a family business in which the brothers would go out into literally the desert. That's southwest Africa, but more so just below Namibia. And out there they would hope that there'd be progress, but unfortunately to this day it's still a desert area. The American copper mines are still in that location, I believe, today.
It's a tough job there.
So that was, and after not too long they decided just to leave that. It didn't work out. Brothers couldn't make it happen, couldn't make business happen. That just wasn't ready without a population. And they came to Cape Town, and we lived there for some more than 20 years. And then as a family, one by one, we came back to, or for the first time, my sister and myself, we each came here to this country and reestablished our citizenship.
Did you go to college in South Africa or in the United States?
Yes. Out of high school, I studied at a university for art, and I also began an apprenticeship in commercial art, as they called it in those days. That's some some 50 years ago, they would call it that. Today, commercial art, of course, is graphic design. It's become that with the technology and all the other tools. But I did this apprenticeship with a printer, and at the end of the apprenticeship, I decided to come to this country.
So you came here and went to where?
I landed in Boston and met my new family that I married into. And
How did you meet the lady of your new family?
Well, it was two aunts who happened to be very good friends, one from each family.
They set you up, didn't they?
At a wedding, some or other said they each had the right person, you'd hope, and that's how we started out.
And it worked.
It's worked. I
have met that lady.
Day.
You found a nice lady there. The aunts did a good job.
Oh, thank you. Yes. So as soon as I came here, the first thing I did was I got a job, and that was with an ad agency. And in those days, Newbury Street was the center for advertising in the Boston area. And I worked there for a short time and decided I would go out on my own. But it just so happens at that time, I decided being a citizen, I did have to serve. So I joined the Massachusetts National Guard.
Did not know that.
So being in the Guard, I had asked if I could be a photographer. And it was a signal. This is all history, but they called it a signal battalion. And these were soldiers who were trained in communications. They provided the switchboards and the lines and the poles to climb, and also had attached to it a photo lab. So I was part of that lab. That's where that all started. Yes. And we would go out in the field. We'd go to, summer camp would be up at Camp Drum in New York, upstate New York. And being up there, we'd be visited by the governor, and he'd come up right up there in a helicopter, check up on us, and we would photograph exercises as well as visits by people.
What kind of camera did you use back then?
Interesting. We used the 4x5.
Great big ones?
It's, depending what you call, very big. This is a 4x5, it's referred to. So the negative is put in what they call a slide, and the slide is entered into the camera. Oh. The kind of camera that you'd see the Boston Herald would have used in those days, and the Globe. And you'd get your image on that slide and bring it back to the lab and then process that. And so it'd be a rather large image to start out with.
I guess so.
It could be sharp. And it made it very challenging, certainly compared to today's technology.
Well, you pick up your cell phone.
All you do is click, and if you don't like it, click again.
I know. It's amazing.
So it really makes you appreciate what the older photographers had to contend with, whatever cameras they had. Sometimes cameras poorer than that equipment, which was quality, and still produce good work.
I was amazed when Polaroids came out. I thought that was high tech back then, and of course it was.
Right. Oh, yes.
It really was instant developing. It was
over the
amazing.
years, it just broke ground every couple of years. They'd come up with an innovation. And to this day, I'm not sure if it's Polaroid or some company, I think it's a company that has bought them out. And they do produce for proofing, as they call it. They'll have negatives that you can use. The photographer might shoot a proof to get an instant result, even though they can do that electronically. But if they're looking to do it on film, because they feel they'll get certain attributes in the composition of the negative, such as food photography, usually they still hold out and use film And so that's where that has come in handy.
Wow. I'm trying to remember what kind of camera I had. I was hired by a daily newspaper, Metro West Daily News, and they bought me 2 cameras to use. And I would bring them to local, I was working in Medfield. I took it to selectmen's meetings and stuff, and then I would develop my own pictures at night. And then I had to have everything ready at 2 o'clock in the morning for the pickup. I still remember the craziness of it. But having all the negatives and the enlargers and the printer, and my God, it took forever. Nowadays, it's so unbelievably amazing.
Oh, sure. No, in those days, I think photos were sent across the world on what they call wire photos. So I know that a photo that would be taken in Cape Town would go onto the wire service, and within 2 to 3 hours it would be in the States or vice versa. And that's how progress was photographed and recorded.
When you think of what photographs were like when our parents were kids,
right.
I do have some old pictures of my parents at in early 1900s, and it's amazing. But how grainy they are, but how lucky we were to have them.
Sure, yes.
Not too many people have the hard copy photos anymore, I think, because everything's on cell phones or on through the internet, etc.
Yeah, and as a result, I think too many of them will be lost.
That's what I'm afraid of.
Too soon a time.
That's exactly what I'm afraid of.
You have to have a system, a method of storing, because storing is, at all times, has been a problem. In those days, fading of the photo. Today,
yes, that's right.
The materials that do our backups are liable to be, to fail over a period of time. They just fall apart, they disintegrate. And so technology might come along to change those methods, and maybe in the future help to be able to store memories and other important
Do you keep
photos.
hard copies of pictures of your grandchildren now, or? Because
No,
I'm not good about it.
No, I'm not too good. I started out when they were babies, but you lose touch of that. So I do have copies on photo storage, on CDs.
Yeah, I do too.
And then as time goes by, I've got to now transmit that to another backup, just in case something happens to the CD, which won't last forever and ever.
You do this for a living now, though, correct? Photography?
Photography.
Graphics?
Well, photography is a part,
Okay.
and an important part of my graphic design, which is the key job. And in graphic design, I find on numerous occasions I'm preparing newsletters for industry. I'm preparing for clients in technology. Among my clients are also people in services, such as a dentist, dental practice in Needham, who I work with, and numerous other industries. I serve them with advertising and with newsletters. And in these projects, I certainly call upon conveniently on the photography, because that helps to come up with a solution, telling a story, but showing a key photo that'll help to enhance the subject, to give it a little drama, as they call it.
Yes, you're right. On your walls, do you have wedding pictures, etc., hanging on your walls at your house?
We've had that in the past.
But not now. No, I'm just.
No, since
a lot of people don't do it anymore.
Well, we painted the house and then never got around to
to rehanging the
to rehanging. It's been. I consider it a serious project, and I like to get those paintings and those photographs at the right height, and that can be to go through that. So I'll have to do that by building them up one at a time in the near future.
What's your favorite graphic design project that you've done?
Invariably, it's posters. I think that posters enable me to express the project, whether it be a concert or a theme of a speech or a trade show. And so in posters, I can bring into it photography, I can bring into it, instead of that, I can bring in artwork.
Okay.
I hire an illustrator when needed.
And he does, what does he do? What does
And
illustrator?
that illustrator will focus strictly on the subject, so it might be a picture of somebody or a building, and that might be in the background of my design of my poster.
Okay.
And what I do is bring all the elements together, the photography, the drawings, illustrations, the wording, the key wording that'll make that poster work at a, as I say, at a trade show or out in traffic on a signboard or in a window or in a library building, posters that can announce commercial and non-profit ventures.
Oh, I could have used you when I ran for selectman all those years. See, I could have had you do posters. I could have them all over and hanging on telephone poles. I never thought of something like that.
Yes.
But how many a year? How many different projects do you go through?
It would be in, call it the light 100s, so it might be a couple hundred,
Wow.
a little more. It's going to be advertising, so there's ad space that I will prepare. I've got one client, it's an association, an industrial association. And so for all the contractors in that industry, we service some of their contractors who work on projects that are deep in Boston, in the city, and they're proud of their work and they want to get it known. So we go into newspapers, commercial newspapers, such as a real estate journal here or a building pamphlet somewhere else, and we'll tout that particular contractor and the project that they've worked on, whether it be a building or supplying the electrical contracting of that building, and informing the general public, but also the professionals in that area, such as architects and engineers who are planning projects, letting them know about these examples of their work.
How do people reach you?
It is word of mouth that works the best. I've got my own website, marketplacers.com.
Say it again so everybody at home hears it.
And so it is Marketplacers.
Marketplacers, okay.
And that
.com.
ends with CERS.com.
Okay.
And that's where I show samples of my work. The rest is association. I have, in both towns that I've lived, I've served in the town in capacity, say, as networking groups or service clubs. In Medfield, I've been thrilled to work on projects that help Memo. And so I've been, when it comes to the Medfield Day, there's lots of work to be done.
Yes, there is.
To let people know that Memo is doing this, will do it, and how they'll do it, and when, and why. And that's my job, to take over where I can help, and I do that.
That's a great project, Medfield Day.
Yes.
Such fun over all the years we've lived here. So I remember it started out so small, and it's just kind of not just blossomed, it's bloomed. It's gone crazy.
Must do for all.
Yeah, and it's really, it's a special day.
Yeah, for the people who put it on, they realize that they'd better do it again because it's needed.
Because everybody likes
Yes.
it. And people look forward, the kids look forward to it too, I think.
Yes, yeah.
As well as people like me, they love it. I just love walking around, seeing what everybody's doing and what they've got to offer and what information they've got. No, it's a good project. It really is. It is. So anything else you do for excitement?
Those are the things that, anything that I was trained to do tends to be part of my hobbies, really. And so what I enjoy in Medfield is the opportunities to be able to get on trails and do some light hiking. It's always fun to be able to get out there with a camera, and I'm looking for new spots that they're all available to the general public, fortunately, all over town. So Medfield, more so, being along the Charles, there's so many nice areas.
There are some beautiful spots. There really are. Have you walked around the state hospital grounds?
I have been in that vicinity, haven't got, I do plan to go there, certainly now, to find the open time that it is. I know that there are good hours to go there. And the new spots that I'm reading have been announced too, spots where the Charles River will be improved, I think, for the public to access for canoeing.
Yeah.
So that seems like a must-do in my near future.
And we're lucky to have places like that. It helps keep Medfield as a good small town. I hope it stays.
Yeah.
I hope so. But canoeing trips on the Charles were a big favorite of my family as the kids were growing up. We had some great stories about canoeing on the Charles and falling out of the boat, a few other things like that going on. But we really had some good time, and a lot, as you're right, there are a lot of good hiking trails.
Right.
So you've taken pictures up there as you've gone?
Yes, well, my pictures are across town, the ponds, the lakes, and the taking of the windmill down the road on Spring Road. And those have been part of the photos that I've been happiest with most, really, over at, well, I know Noon Hill is one, and the other areas that are part of the trustees, Massachusetts Trustees of Reservations. These are the pictures that I've really got to enjoy. They've all offered me a special, one-of-a-kind, at the right time, at the right place. It's just the thing to do, to capture that and remember that particular scene.
Do you like taking pictures of old houses too, or are you more into the trails and that kind of thing?
When it comes to old houses, that have to be a reason. It might, and I've had the opportunities commercially to do that on assignment of, say, newer buildings. So I sort of spread it out. I mean, if there's an interest in it for a purpose, then that's what I would love to do. I've done at the Peak House, went upstairs.
Isn't that fun upstairs?
The tools that are inside, those early tools, got a nice close-up.
They're wonderful.
That really shows that what had happened in that house, how the people lived, with the way they made their flour and the way they cooked and the way they turned the fire over, all the equipment, really was interesting.
It is interesting. I'm glad I didn't have to do it, though. I'm lazy, I guess, and soft, but I'm glad I didn't have to do it.
It's nice to look at.
It is. So you're active in the Historical Society?
No, I haven't really done that much. But I have, as it so happens, over at the burial grounds, I have on numerous occasions gone over there at daylight, and then at other kinds of light, say dusk, and captured some really, I would say, great images. I've been there at night on a project once. The project was in a photo class that I had, and I went there at night and got the street lighting was just perfect to light up the stones. And an easy vantage point was right on Main Street on 109, looking into the grounds and getting a great mood at night. I think that's a must-do for anybody that enjoys photography. It really helps you. It sets up what you'd be looking for. And of course, that's an area that more photographers are covering, are these fascinating burial grounds with interesting notations.
It's a beautiful cemetery.
Inscriptions.
It really is. It's absolutely beautiful.
Right.
Now, one of our selectmen, Mark Fisher's, I believe 11 generations here in Medfield. His mother was at Clark, and he's a volunteer down there, and he's gone to try and find the family graves because they've always stayed in Medfield. It blows my mind that one family can stay here that long.
Right. Right.
But he has done a lot of studies of that and taken some pictures, et cetera, of his family's graves, and I think it's a great project.
Mm.
I don't have anybody buried there, so you don't have to look for mine. Have you ever gone back to South Africa?
I happened to make one trip back, so my wife and I, we went there in 1989, which was the turning point. 1990, Mandela was released a month or two later.
That's right.
So we landed there just before that happened and spent a couple of weeks in Cape Town. And it was interesting to see changes that happened in the political environment then that were happening. And of course, after that, major changes that just kept rolling on to change the way people live today in South Africa. It's a beautiful country, and I enjoyed the scenery naturally, and looked at many homesteads and many places of interest for the. I went to Mandela's home area where he grew up. That was on the route, and it was quite a trip to see.
I guess so. You went back to see the house you lived in as a child? As a young person?
There's a bank right on
okay.
top of that. So that was, it was emotional going back and seeing what a change my village of Athlone has become today. Even
going back in this country to the house that I grew up in. We went back about 20 years ago and saw the house I grew up in. My kids said, "Ring the doorbell, Mom, and they'll let you in." And I was so tempted, but I didn't. I'd probably cry. Did you get emotional like that?
A little.
I would think so.
Yeah, I think it's more so before I went. There's nothing like going to your roots or your going back further in time and the expectations of what might happen. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, when you get there, quite often, any fears you might have are not founded well, but it is an experience to do that and make the connection.
But you're glad you live here now?
This is what I wanted to do, and this is what I'm determined I'm going to carry out. It is such a, it's offered me all of the things that I'd be looking for right here.
That's great.
So it's worked out well, and I couldn't think of another place.
That's a perfect final line for our show, Medfield People. We are the perfect place. I love it, because that's the way I feel about the town. We were lucky to find it. Very lucky to find Medfield. And I'm glad 3 of my kids have found it too. Come back.
Yeah, that is so. I know reading often, seeing how far back Medfield has come, or rather how it originated in our times, to know that with the country, how it's come along, is something people should look into, because that's certainly, I've only touched on that, and it's fascinating.
Yeah.
And to read more about that history is a learning experience.
It definitely
should be done. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Seymour, for staying here, and thank everybody for watching the newest edition of Medfield People. And don't forget Seymour's email, your website, thank you, is?
Marketplacers.com.
And his name, if you need to find it in the phone book, is Seymour Levy, L-E-V-Y.
That is right.
That is it, and you can always find it. But thank you for watching Medfield People. I hope we find another guest as interesting as Seymour. And if anybody out there has any ideas of somebody with a different look at the world and a different look at the town, please give me a call or contact me at annmedfield@verizon.net. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's great, Seymour. Thank you very much.
Production support provided by Medfield.tv. Access to our community.